So ultimately, what is golf psychology? Well, over the last decade, I have answered this question in hundreds of different ways, but now I've boiled it down to one thing, and that is this equation here. So, golf psychology is the ability to get your thoughts and your feelings to match your intention at all times. I'll say that one more time. Golf psychology is the ability to get your thoughts and feelings to match your intention at all times. So as Tiger Woods rocks up onto this tee, he has the ability to get his thoughts and his feelings to match his intention. His intention might be to hit that into the center of the green. His intention might be to attack the flag. His intention might be to hit it to the back left, back center of the green, save play, whatever it is, he has an intention. And his pre-shot routine, the way he's practiced, the person that he's become, helps him get his thoughts and feelings to match that intention. Most people, when they walk on to that tee, say, holy smoke, look at all that water. Oh my God, look at all those people. I hope I don't chunk it. Please don't chunk it. And they kind of just put their destiny with the gods, close their eyes, hold their breath, and probably chunk it. So Tiger has this ability to get his thoughts and feelings to match his intention where most mere mortals don't. So we want to try and help our students develop that. So a lot of students I work with, elite junior players that want to get into college, their intention is to get into college. But what thoughts and feelings do they have to match that intention? Mini tour players want to get to the big stage. What thoughts and feelings do they have to match that intention? That's on a macro level. On a micro level, okay, I've got this to become exempt in the AJGA. Okay, I've got this to finish 7th on the web.com. I've got this to make the cut on the PGA Tour. That's the intention. Thoughts and feelings. How do we do that? How do we get our thoughts and feelings to match our intention? Well, ultimately, the thoughts that we have to have should be process orientated. All too often, golfers are going to think of outcomes. So the intention is often uncontrollable. Shoot a score, get selected for college, win a tournament, get in this team, become an All-American, get a tour card. All outcomes, all out of our control. If we try and control something that we can't control as humans, we become stressed. If our thinking is making us stressed, that transcends into our feelings, into our body, manifests as tension. So if we focus on the outcome, if we focus on what it is we want, if we focus on that intention, often we will fail to get it because that interferes with our thinking and our feeling. If we can have process thoughts like this guy, 2019 Masters, process focused going down that stretch, only controlling what he can control. You hear McIlroy all the time. I don't think about score anymore. I used to. All I think about now is my processes, my processes, my processes. Because processes are ultimately the things that we can control. So breathing, body language, self-talk, pre-shot routine, all of those things that have been traditionally taught in psychology help us get our thoughts and feelings to match our intention. But a lot of the time with traditional psychology, that remains just information. I believe we have to make it as practically applicable as we possibly can. So using the science of how humans learn, understanding teaching games for understanding, and understanding the constraints-led learning frameworks, that can really, really help us develop games, challenges, practical tasks that will get students to get their thoughts and feelings to match their intention. So I'm going to skip on one. I'm going to play you a video that highlights some good process focuses.
I'm feeling into a vibe. I think it's anywhere in that sort of 2 hours. Yeah. Any left leg like that. Yeah. Like you said, it's just a little fast. Okay. Yeah. And all good advice. One goes against them from the left as I feel. Holds toward the frontage part of the green, 11 paces on, but the safest play, a little past the hole. He is getting almost at addict state as he steps in. Swing here, powerful swing. Field driving distance this week. It's been looking hard, Jack. Yeah, just left him home. My pre-show routine where it's if I am under a bit of stress, there is a lot of emotion and a lot of just controlling the stress levels. It does help a lot just to really kind of relax before you go into the shot. Really try to focus on what you really need to go and hit the shot that you need to hit. It's kind of worked its way into being more of a relaxing visualization kind of technique going into the shot, more so than just kind of seeing the shot now. Do you see the whole shot or just parts of the shot starting point? If I see my swing, so say for instance, I'm standing here right now, I'm standing behind, looking at the swing, it's the target. And once I see that, I'll see my setup, and I see the swing, go back, and then pull through. I see the ball take off, and wherever I see the ball play, high, low, and that's the bounce and roll.
Is off and kind of stand back behind the ball, kind of in line with it like this, and say I'm going to go and just stick with the same target over the red ball. So I'll stand kind of back here, and I'll kind of think, am I going to, if I'm going to hit a high straight ball, kind of get the motion right here, what straight is, right? Kind of 2 or 3 little practice swings, nothing swinging too hard. Just get the motion. If I'm going to hit more of a fade, I'm kind of sawing it off, right? It's a little different in those 2 swings, just to kind of get that motion. I step back and try and see the shot. So I normally stand kind of in this position, look at where that ball is going to travel up in the air, where it's going to drop, the depth that it's going to land. Is it going to fly that bunker out there? Is it going to land just right at it, just left of it? And then from there, I step in, still kind of high on the target, set the club down right where I want it to be started. Sometimes I bob my head too much, but all in all, I'd like to kind of just get set up in a nice, comfortable, powerful position, pointing at that target with that same swing that you just rehearsed.
So there we have it, OSVEA. That is the process that I teach my students. OSVEA, OSVEA. How I teach it to coaches like yourselves versus how I teach it to students. I don't know if there's any players on this webinar, if everyone's a coach. Is slightly different, so I try and blend the two. Ultimately, in our brain, this is how I would teach it to a student. I would say, in our brain, there are 3 things. There is a calculator, there is an athlete, and there is a chimp, like a little monkey. The O and the S, and I would draw this on a whiteboard. I think if you haven't got a whiteboard on your golf range, you're missing out. It's the best training aid in the world. Everything I do is written down. I get students to write it down. Very, very, very powerful. So big whiteboard on wheels on the golf range, guys. That's, if you take nothing from this webinar, buy a big whiteboard for your golf range. If you are a student, have a whiteboard so you can jot stuff down as you practice. So on the big whiteboard, I would draw a big circular head, and I would have a calculator drawn in part of the brain. The O, the options and the selection, concrete data, factual analysis, they go into the calculator. That is a mathematical equation, a very complex mathematical equation. Number of yards, slope, wind, where do we want it to land, how far is it going to roll, etc., etc. But it's facts and data. So O and S, options and selection. And Scott Fawcett's decade is a great way to help people analyze the O and S of OSVEA, the options and the selection phase. Now, what is vital is that the human, the player, the human brain takes that information, the O and the S, the options and selection, and turns it into something sensory. I'll say that again. The concrete data has to be taken and to be turned into something sensory. A world of imagination, a world of feel, a world of heightened awareness and sense, because it's that drives movement. Data doesn't drive movement. Sensory stimulation drives movement. So the visualization is the way that we take this concrete data and we transfer it into movement. And then the execution phase, well, now the golfer is loaded with these sensory feelings. We've taken it from the calculator, we've moved it to the golfer. As we execute the E of OSVEA, all we have to do, keep that negative mind quiet. That is the only goal. Keep that negative mind quiet. And there is a trillion ways to do this. That is heavily dependent on the individual. I've had tour players that have 3 or 4 swing thoughts. I don't like that, but if it's keeping the inner chimp quiet, great. I've had tour players that have one like nice, long-lasting swing thought that might be tempo-based or balance-based. I'm more of a fan of that. We saw Jason Day, target, target, target. We saw Jordan Spieth trying to recreate feel. All of these things, great ways of executing a golf shot. And then once we have executed the golf shot, we've kept that inner chimp quiet, we have to accept. So OSVEA, options, selection, visualization, execution, acceptance. It fits the science of human learning and human performance. When we watch the Golf Channel, you will not see a professional player that doesn't engage in every single one of those steps in that order. Now, what goes into those steps or the framework is very different, but the framework is followed in a way because these pros have worked out. That's how you do it. Science and research also backs that up. And the other thing that backs that up is if you're immersed into your routine, then you are process focused. So if you are process focused, you will be at the bottom of the blue triangle that's on this page and you'll be chilled. You'll be in optimal state. The mind and body will be connected. If you start to think of outcomes, you will climb this blue triangle. You will go around the red arrow spirals and your golf swing will become impeded. So the golf swing technique, the mental game, how we practice, the physical side, exercising in a gym, etc., they shouldn't be separated. They actually all synergize. One is dependent on the other. The separation of these pieces is too artificial. Elite performance is dependent on all of these synergizing because our technique, the way the golf club moves around the body, is heavily dependent on the thoughts that we're trying to have. The way that we're thinking, or the way that I prefer to say focusing, or our attentional focus, will heavily impact how the club moves around the body. So these are not independent, they are interdependent pieces of performance. And that is why it's so important when someone is doing a pre-shot routine that you ask them to think out loud, because the physical steps could match everything that OSVEA requests, and they could look like they're at the bottom of the blue triangle. But what's running through their mind could be completely different. So again, if you take nothing from this webinar, buy a whiteboard, whether you're a player or a coach, and hit shots talking your routine out loud, because that will give you an insight into your attentional focus. You physically could be on the V, like Justin Rose, visualizing, picking targets, seeing the ball or seeing a line, whatever it is that he's doing when he does that. And he could be thinking, oh man, I'd love a hot dog from that van over there. It wouldn't match. So think aloud protocol to really help people stay at the bottom of that blue triangle. Okay. In true Iain fashion, I talked a little bit too much there, but I hope it was some valuable information. Now, we saw Mr. Spieth and his awesome OSVEA. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that is what he was doing on the 12th hole. I think it was 2016 Augusta, or 2014, 2016 maybe. So let's listen to his video and we'll analyze where he broke down.
What did you learn today? I mean, I learned what I learned in 2014, and it's just stay committed on 12. It's a 150-yard shot, and I feel like I can bleed it next to the hole, and it's a stock and iron for me. But that hole, for whatever reason, just it has people's numbers. So stay committed behind the bunker. It was really one swing. 10 and 11, you can take bogeys there. I was still 2 under for the tournament with a couple par fives left. My goal for the day was 4 under. So we were still right on pace. I just didn't take that extra deep breath. Michael said, hit it right here, hit it right here. And I remember just getting over the ball thinking I'm just going to go ahead and hit a little cut to the hole. And that's what I did in 2014, and it cost me the tournament then too. That was the right club. It's just the wrong shot. I was more comfortable hitting a draw with my irons. And I knew that every time I had played fades this week, that shot kind of came out. And, I just, at the time, you're going to throw all bad swings away, and you're just going to focus on how confident you can step into that shot. And that's what I did. But the swing just wasn't quite there to produce the right ball flight. So, ultimately, I should have just played a draw on that hole.
So, go back to what I said. Michael Grella, I think he pays Michael Grella, like when he was in his prime, when he was doing well, it was 4 point whatever million a year Michael Grella was earning. A very, very highly paid sportsman. So, pays this guy $4 million. He stood on the 12th hole, leading the Masters and by 2, and he looks at his shot options, and his options are to hit it to the center of the green with a draw or to bleed it to the flag with a fade. He and Grella together select hit it to the middle of the green. So we know Spieth's routine because we just watched it on the previous video. He then visualizes that. So he starts to feel that practice swing, as we said. He starts to feel that practice swing where he's feeling a draw. And this isn't an assumption. We've heard him talk his cognitive processes aloud. So he's feeling that draw. He's then walked to the ball, looking at the back part of the bunker, wherever his target was. So he's engaged with that. So options are on point. Him and Michael have done a great job. Selection has been solid. Options and selection. Concrete data's gone from the calculator. It started to move to the golfer because he started to prime his movements through feeling them in his practice swing. He's feeling that draw. He's focused on that draw. He gets over the ball and basically says, I'm only in the lead by 2, outcome. I just want to try and make a birdie, outcome. I'm just going to hit fade and bleed this next to the flag. Well, he just broke the link in his chain. OSV, draw to the center of the green, draw to the center of the green, draw to the center of the green. E, fade. And he then even said he'd had trouble with that shot all week. He'd been ballooning them and hitting them short right. And that's where the water was. So Jordan Spieth gave us a prime example of what his OSVEA is in that amazing video. And that video is gold dust. To have an insight into a PGA Tour player's cognitive and physical or psychological and physiological movements going through the routine is awesome. But then in that interview, he just told us he broke that train. He broke that chain when he was trying to hit to the Masters. And it's probably, take it all the way back to the start of the webinar, because he was focused on his intention. He was focused on his intention of winning. He wasn't focused on getting his thoughts and his feelings to match his intention. He was focused on the outcome, something he couldn't control. So I hope I've done that justice to you guys, and it can give you an insight into not only what can go wrong when we're trying to get our thoughts and feelings to match our intention, when we're trying to be process focused, it gives you an understanding of why. Why it went wrong? Because of the outcomes, because of the pressure, because of the stresses of trying to go after something that we can't control. And if Jordan Spieth is going to make it, then guess what? Our students are going to make it. We have another example of Adam Scott when he did it in the 2012 Open. Very, very, very similar. I won't play it, but you can get this on my YouTube channel, Game Like Training. There's a playlist called The Mental Game of Golf. His interview after he loses to Ernie Els by a shot, when he finishes bogey, 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 he mentions 9 outcomes in the interview and 0 processes. So if you get a chance, give that a watch. So, practical application. How do we